Hello and welcome to 360 Property Manager's demo video for tenant setup. The purpose of this video is to show you how to create a lease agreement and assign the tenant to a unit in a property. I will show you how to create a lease quote, convert the lease quote to a lease agreement, then assign the tenant to a specific unit in a building. These are the necessary steps for the tenant setup process in 360 PM. Let's start with creating a lease quote. Anytime a prospective tenant inquires about renting property, we can create a lease quote, entering all the information about this prospect. And at any time in the future, we can convert this quote to an actual lease agreement. To enter a new lease quote, we select the new lease quote option from the Role Center. Under the lease contract page is where we'll start to enter information about our prospective tenant. I will do so under the Lease Details tab first. We start off with the lease number, which is just an identification number for the lease contract quote. Under description, I will enter rental agreement, as this is a potential rental agreement. I will choose Plastic Goods, who is the potential tenant that we are going to be renting to. As you can see, the address details are populated automatically, and so is the contact name. Property code deals with the property that we are renting, and lease code is also the lease unit that we are renting. Salesperson code and status can be left blank at this moment. Under the lease tab, we can enter additional lease terms for this potential lease. Lease creation date is the date that we are entering this. Net or gross lease is always a good option to enter. The term type is set to 1 year in this case. Our lease commencement date is set at April 1st. Note, if we change the term type to 3 years, then our expiry date changes to reflect this new term. Our rental period and end period start date are listed, and so is the nature of the business. Property tax roll number and premise usage can be entered at a later date. Under the contract line subform, this is where we'll enter in financial terms of our lease. In this case, we're going to enter base rent. We'll choose our property and our unit number. Note that the lease area for the building is populated at 45,000 square feet. We can select a price per square foot. This automatically calculates our monthly price. Under the current term increase option, if we want, we can choose step-ups for this term. Other information noted here is the tax on this amount and the monthly billing code, which is set to monthly. The last two tabs, invoice and the miscellaneous, are additional information that we can enter. So we can bill to a customer, which is this tenant, and we can also enter in miscellaneous information such as a security deposit. So if we are asking for a $5,000 security deposit, we can indicate if the security deposit was received. At a later date, we can come back in and enter in all this information. So once we filled out all the lease quote information and we find out that the tenant has decided that they want to go ahead and sign a lease, we have to make this lease quote an actual lease agreement. And to do that, we would go up into the Actions tab and hit this Make Contract button. Once we do this, this will no longer be a quote and it will actually be a real agreement in the system. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And you can see now that the system has created a lease agreement, and from the property quote list, there are no more lease quotes as it's disappeared and went into a lease agreement. If we wanted to call up that lease agreement, we would close the lease quote page and pull up our lease agreements. And we can see here that Plastics Good is now under the lease agreement page. We can double click onto that and view and make changes should we need to. Now let's go and assign this lease to an actual unit of the building. To assign the tenant to the building, we'd have to call up our property list and open up the property card for the test property. Under the Tenants tab, you can see that there is no tenant listed. So we will call up our Plastic Good tenant and we will assign the contract to this unit. As you can see, the lease date and lease end date are populated automatically. And that is all. Once we've completed this, the tenant is now attached to the building and we can start with our building processes. Thank you for watching the video on tenant setup. Please visit our website for more videos.